CONCACAF was the worst performing confederation at the 2022 World Cup, and it begs the question, did CONCACAF fail? Today, we will bring on Filippo from Tactical Manager TV to help me break down and answer that question. We will go through each of the 4 nations that competed for CONCACAF and simply answer the question, did Canada, United States, Mexico, and Costa Rica underperform at this World Cup? Now it's time to give a shout out to the legends over at OneFootball, who are the sponsors for all the World Cup content on the channel. OneFootball will absolutely keep you up to date during the World Cup as you head to the app, search for your favorite national teams like Canada or Germany. Now go give them a follow and watch your homepage get populated with stories that you will care about as they happen. You can also track matches live in the app, check out starting 11s, watch videos from behind the scenes as well as interviews, highlights, and so much more, including the ability to watch full matches directly in the app from around the world. It's truly an incredible app to help you stay up to date with everything going on in the beautiful game. I personally use OneFootball every day to track Canadians playing abroad, and I highly recommend it for all of you watching. So click on the link in the description to download the OneFootball app. It helps creators like myself. Thank you all so much, everyone. Now let's get into the episode. All right, everyone. So we brought Tac back to the channel again. This is 2 videos, pretty back to back.
I'm being
here,
held
Tac.
hostage here.
Yeah, I mean, he's still got the same Dragon Ball Z shirt on. I mean, I gave him the opportunity. He said he wanted to come back. But today, ladies and gentlemen, as you guys heard, we are going to be talking about, did CONCACAF fail at the 2022 World Cup? And I think the only fair place to start is the expectations going into the tournament. So let's just list off the 4 nations and where you kind of expected them to finish. Just simply ratings, not in terms of performance. And then I'll do the same, and then we'll kind of go from there. So start off, I guess, with the U.S. Where did you expect them to finish in the group?
I expected them to finish second, so they kind of finished where I expected, behind England, but ahead of Wales and Iran. And then the U.S. lost to the Dutch in the round of 16, which to me was, I believed we could have won that game. But when you watch the game, the Dutch were far better. And to be honest, the expectation, the bare minimum, was the round of 16 for the U.S. I would say if we made it to a quarterfinals, it would have been overachieving. It would have been a fantastic result. So overall, I think the U.S. more or less achieved what they were supposed to. A little bit because the group was weak. I don't think Wales and Iran are a strong national team. And a little bit of luck, right? Iran almost tied us. And if they tied us, we wouldn't have gone through. But yeah, the U.S. did achieve, I would say, what was expected.
Yep, and I agree with that. I mean, going into it, as much as I might have wanted to or not wanted to with the U.S., I expected them to get out of this group because I was just jealous of what the group looked like. They were, like, compared to what Canada had. I think there was really good moments in that group from the U.S. as well. Like, I thought there was moments where this team looked really good. I thought there was some where they were a little, sluggish, like towards the end of that Iran game, just tactical decisions as we expect from Greg Berhalter. But all in all, the job was to get out of the group. Exactly what they did. Went up against a tough Dutch side, and I think that's, so like it's hard because you want to see, like, Morocco as a good example, overachieving. That could have maybe been the U.S. if they got the game plan there. And I know, Tac, you're disappointed at the early exit because with Greg, he did exactly what he had to do in qualifying. He did exactly what he had to do.
Yeah,
here.
He's the bare minimum manager that I say. He gets the job done. He got the job done from the bare minimum that you would expect, but he never got us to play better than we could have, or even, I guess, not even better than we could have. Never got us to hit our ceiling, I would say, with the players he had available. He never got us to punch above our weight. While John Herdman, not in the World Cup, but in World Cup qualifying, he did get Canada to punch above their weight. I guess even in the Gold Cup in 2021, Canada played maybe even better than I guess missing Alphonso Davies. Yeah, they did. They outplayed
and Jonathan David, and they took the game to Mexico. So I'd say
he did. But Greg never was able to do so. He's the bare minimum manager right there.
And on top of that, and I mean, you can speak a little bit. And I think this is a fair talking point around the U.S. because I agree. Everything he did, bare minimum. And despite getting out of the group, which was exciting for the U.S., he still found a way to push buttons by not playing Gio Reyna probably as much as you guys would have expected. One of the most, I think, decorated youngsters in world football, one that the U.S. absolutely adore. He was healthy. He was available. He didn't get played. And
we're just that good. We don't need.
We're just that good. You don't need Gio Reyna.
We're so good. We don't need Gio Reyna. We can afford to play Jordan Morris and Jesus instead.
Yeah, I mean, I think
that's been Greg, right? Because Greg did get better with his player selection as time went on, right? He phased out some guys that were absurd names like Zardes, Leggett, Jackson Ewell. Long didn't play in the World Cup, which we thought he was going to start. But it seems like with Greg, it's like every time he would get it, it looked like he was getting it all right. He would always do something. It's like, hey, look, the lineup is good. Good job, Greg. And then it's like, Gio's on the bench. Okay, that's not good, but as long as he comes in, it makes sense. It's okay. And then he puts Jordan Morrison, and you're like, wait, what? What just happened here? So
I know.
with Greg, it's always been like that. It's like you can't have a game where you're 100% satisfied with him. There has to be something crazy, and he's done it. But yeah, he did. Like I said, I didn't think the Greg Berhalter era was a success. It wasn't also a failure. I thought it was somewhere in between. It was like he did what he did. There's good. He got some very important dual nationals for us for the future.
Yep.
But overall, in terms of achievement, you have past U.S. coaches that many claim were horrible, like Klinsmann, which he was bad. But Klinsmann got out of a group in 2014 with a worse U.S. team. It was worse than this one.
Yep.
And we had Germany, Portugal, and Ghana, and he got out. That's a tougher group, man. That's a tougher group than what we had this World Cup. And he got out. Bruce Arena, the 0-2 team might have been better than this one, or at least they were in better form or just tougher players, but he made it to a quarterfinals. So we had coaches in the past that got the U.S. to punch above their weight. The United States 1994 team was horrible, and they made it to the round of 16 to lose to Brazil 1-0, the champions.
Yep.
So like you said, Greg is the bare minimum guy. He did achieve the bare minimum. There's nothing that you can go to Greg and say, oh my God, this guy completely failed. He didn't completely fail in anything, but he didn't succeed in anything. It was just like he did what he was supposed to.
Yep. And I mean, that's what I was kind of like. I liked a lot of the lineups I saw for Greg. I just, the Gio factor, just like he has to dangle something in front of the US fans just to make them super angry. But that is what the question is. It's did CONCACAF in general, but we're going one nation at a time. Did the U.S. fail at the World Cup? I would say no. I would say they didn't fail at the World Cup. That's not a fail. It's right where you would expect them to probably finish. And I think that's our conclusion here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Now it's time to go on to Mexico, which I think is a little more interesting because they had, I would say, probably the second easiest group out of CONCACAF. They were probably, I would say, let's just start off right there. I say that they were expected to get out. It was probably down to them or Poland. And I would say just in terms of how Mexico are at a World Cup, how many times in a row did they make it to the round of 16? 8?
94, 98, 02, 06, 2010, 14, 7 in a row.
Seven in a row. So
and
they were probably...
Just to make it clear, they probably would have made it in 1990, but they were banned because they played over-the-age players in youth tournaments. So they probably would have made it again. So
it's fair to say the expectations of Mexico going into this World Cup was probably bare minimum, similar to the U.S., round of 16.
Yeah. Also, Poland's not that good.
No, right? They're not. Yeah. No, Wojtek Szczesny had quite the tournament. I don't think we can take anything away from that. But all in all, I think towards the end, because that last game in the group was a fun watch, watching the two games going on at the same time. Mexico, I thought, played pretty well, actually. Mm-hmm. But they fell short. And at the end of the day, there's not a lot of love there for Tata Martino. So the fact that they failed in the group stage, I mean, as we already know, he's long gone. But what is the biggest piece that you want to take away from this group with this Mexican side, and how much do you think they failed? Because like I said, there was some good moments, similar to like the U.S.'s group. There were some good moments from this Mexico team. They went 1-1-1, and they got knocked out. So in context, they got knocked out against Poland, and they were one goal away. They would have scored one more goal. All of a sudden, they're in the round of 16. So I guess, looking at it that way, how badly did they fail, or do you think that they were doomed already just due to simply Tata Martino in this last?
I thought they were going to go through. The thing that comes down to Mexico, we talked about this. I did a whole preview on Mexico before the World Cup, and I talked about how it would come down to the Poland game, right? If they beat Poland, I said they're through. They're going to make it through, and they would have if they beat Poland. Yeah. If it ties, it's going to go down to goal differential, and goal differential is tricky, right? Depends on how you play against a team one day. They essentially got knocked out because they lost 2-0 to Argentina. That's mainly why. I guess they got lucky against Poland because Ochoa got a PK from Lewandowski, and they didn't recreate anything that whole game. But to me, it's a failure. It doesn't matter how you get out of your group. If it's because the United States had the same amount of points as Mexico. Sorry, we had 5, actually. We got that draw. So we got that. So it doesn't matter how you get out of your group, even if it's on goal differential, because the U.S. has gotten out in goal differential in the past. You have to get out. You have to find a way to get out, and they haven't gotten out. So to me, Mexico was a failure. And like you said, their group was a bit tougher than the United States one, in my opinion, but it was easier than Canada's and Costa Rica's. The way I evaluate it is Argentina, to me, is better than England. So their top team in the group was tougher. Poland was better than Wales. And I think Saudi Arabia and Iran are probably very even, very close. So it was a bit tougher than the US one. And they got 4 points, which is less than the United States, and they didn't go through. So to me, they failed. And I think every Mexican fan agrees with that.
And I think Mexican fans agree with that as well, because like we just said, it's 7. This would have been 8 in a row. They made it through round 16. So that in itself is a bit of a failure just in terms of expectations. But for me as well, the last, 2 years have just been an absolute disaster for the Mexican national team, from youth level tournaments all the way up to the Gold Cups, the Nations League, US basically dancing on them. Like they wanted this because, it could have started maybe that turnaround. And instead, now that 7-year streak, or that 7 tournament streak, it's over. They're starting from scratch. So I 100% agree. The expectations of them should have been getting out of the group. The performances, I thought, alone proved that they could have got out of the group. They didn't find a way to get it done. I'd say, just like you tacked, this was a failure.
But Josh, remember one thing. In 2014, Mexico had finished, I think, 4th in CONCACAF. They went to the Interconfederate playoffs.
Yes, they did.
So they sucked in that cycle. And they went to the World Cup in Brazil, played Brazil in the group stage, right? Even tied Brazil in that World Cup. Sure, it wasn't the best Brazilian side, but it's still Brazil, still playing in Brazil. They tied. Memo Ochoa had one of the best performances of a goalkeeper ever in the World Cup. Not the best, but one of them. And they went through their group with that horrible cycle. So regardless of what we saw from them the past 2 years, which, by the way, they still finished ahead of the U.S. in World Cup qualifying, we expect them to get out of their group, and they did not. So to me, there's no doubt in my mind that Mexico has failed in this World Cup.
Yep, and like you said, I think a lot of the Mexican supporters would agree. But now it's time to move on to one where I'm not sure what you're going to say, but this one's Costa Rica. Now, Costa Rica's group looked terrifying. Obviously, Japan is a very talented side. We both know that. And then there's Germany, which, they fell a little short, but before the tournament, you'd expect them to go through, along with Spain, and then Costa Rica. Now, this one's weird because they got spanked 7-0. Then they played a rotated Japan side and they won, giving them a shot. And then they had a very entertaining match on the last match day against Germany, where at one point, Japan and Costa Rica were the 2 nations to go through. And then, just quality came through, the right substitutions for Germany. They turned that around, 1-4-2. Costa Rica finished with a 1-0-2 record. They finished 4th in the group. They bounce out. If you would have asked me before the group, I would have said Costa Rica is expected to finish 4th. Mm-hmm. I don't think I would have picked them to get a win. So, but like you said, there's context around that win. So I would say, honestly, they hit expectations. I don't know what you're thinking. I don't think this is the best version of Costa Rica we've seen for a long time. And just the way that they play, I just didn't think they were going to do anything in this group. So the fact that they got a win makes me, it's almost like a little bit above expectations. But I would say they were expected to go out in the group stage, and that's what happened.
It's a tricky one, right? Because I expected Costa Rica to get 0 points.
Yep.
So technically, they achieved more than I expected. They got 3 points. They finished last in their group, as expected. So let's go by part. Let's go each part at a time. Finished last in the group, was expected.
Yep.
3 points, overachieved. Right? We didn't expect that. How did they get to 3 points? The Japan manager went crazy. The coach went crazy and rotated 6 to 7 guys. And Costa Rica managed to beat them. Nevertheless, you can only beat what's in front of you, and they did that. So they got 3 points. Now, the same time I expected them to get 0 points, I didn't expect them to get spanked 7-0 in any of the matches. I thought they would put up a fight, and there's that pride. But then you go to the Germany game. They lost to Germany, but they most certainly put up a fight against Germany. So I would actually say Costa Rica sort of didn't do as we expected, but I wouldn't say they failed. I would say overall they were about what we expected, because there were moments where they surprised us overachieving and moments they, surprised us underachieving, like the Spain game. But the Germany loss, that's sort of what I expected from them, to lose with not a big, it was 4-2, right?
Yep, 4-2.
Yeah, but Germany having to come back from the result. Beating Japan was a surprise, obviously big props to the Japanese coach for essentially giving them that, but they still beat Japan. Doesn't matter. I'd say Costa Rica was more or less what we expected.
Yeah. I agree. Every point you just did, it's like one for this crazy.
It balances out, right?
It did. That's
Yeah.
like, I agree. So I would say, like, you asked Costa Rica, and I don't think they would assume they were going to get out. I think they would have expected this. This was just a little bit of everything, and I feel like it's fair just to say, yeah, right down the middle.
Mm-hmm.
This is basically where we expected them to finish, fourth in the group, but they did it with some type of style, I guess. So
yeah, they made it. Let's put it this way: they finished fourth, but they made it cool.
They made it cool. Yeah, they made it cool. Hey, we lost 7-0, but won, and then took Germany right to the end, and ended up Germany going out with us. So
weren't they like at one point in the last round like qualifying? There was something like that, or close.
Yeah, like it was Japan and Costa Rica going through
at one point, right?
Yeah. When they were winning 2-1
for like 2 minutes or so. But
for 2 minutes,
it's still cool. They made it cool. Yeah,
they made it cool. So I think that's fair. I think just given this core Costa Rican group, an aging side, I think that's fair. But now we're gonna go on to I think one of the more interesting ones. I mean, I'm a bias, but it's because Canada had a lot of hype going into this. Obviously, as Filippo knows, I mean, this is a national team that's won over a lot of new supporters. It's one that, like you said, John Herdman was punching above his weight in terms of what they did in the past 18 or so months at the Gold Cup and qualifying. This looked like a fun team. My expectations going in weren't to get out of the group. I don't think that's fair expectations. I think that's a biased expectation, just given the group. Croatia, who finished second last World Cup, Belgium third, and a talented Moroccan side with at the time, a lot of noise going around with some of their star players and management. So like the hope was there, but the expectations for me was probably third or fourth, depending on how Morocco was going to do. This is the expectations going into the tournament. And I was really disappointed with Canada. I was thrilled with their first performance against Belgium. I feel like it was very cruel. They walked away with nothing. But at the end of the day, they did. They didn't take their chances. They definitely took the match to Belgium, really exploiting that Belgium side. Didn't take their chances. One counterattack, Michy Batshuayi scored. And that, as soon as we missed that penalty as well, I just felt like that's the turning point. Because I don't think Canada matched up nicely against Croatia. And it was always get something from Morocco, get something from Belgium, and hope. We let Belgium slip. The tactics were absolutely atrocious against Croatia. We honestly scored too early and then just allowed one of the best midfields in international football do what they do, ran us ragged, poor tactical decisions from Herdman, and we got spanked. And then the Morocco game, despite it being 2-1, was an atrocious first half as well. The wrong personnel was in there. The game was just a cruise control for Morocco. We got a lucky own goal and then actually had a really positive second half. But at the end, it was nothing to play for. The game was already over, and we went 0-0-3. But it's hard because, again, we'll throw it over to you. My expectations, again, maybe third or fourth, but I can't confidently say this team should have finished third. But I kind of expected them to get a point, no?
I think Canada underachieved for sure in the World Cup, right? Well, look at it this way. Y'all topped CONCACAF World Cup qualifying. I said it before the World Cup started. Some Canadians got mad because they didn't really think rationally about what I was saying. I said the US and Mexico, despite finishing behind Canada in World Cup qualifying, they have higher odds of getting out of the group for a couple reasons. One was these are two federations and teams that have been in the World Cup, so they understand what you need to do, when you have to defend, when you have to attack, how you to grind results here and there. And it showed that in the World Cup. Even Mexico was smarter of like how to play. And last but not least, Canada was placed in a tougher group than the US and Mexico. And I said, for that reason, I don't expect Canada to get out of the group in one way, shape, or form. But I did expect Canada to get 2 or 3 points, maybe 2 draws, or maybe a win against someone.
Yep.
I expected Canada to get that. And getting 0 points was not something I expected from Canada. And to me, that's an underachievement because this team is good enough to get a draw with one of those teams, possibly a win against one of them. And obviously, if Davies converts that PK against Belgium, we might be having a different conversation now. I don't think Canada would have lost to Belgium if he got that PK, probably won. And if they had won that game, it would have been different. But like you said, I think it's a good learning curve for John Herdman, especially. Canada changed a bit of their ways of playing. They bunkered a lot in CONCACAF and tried to play in transition. and it worked. And then I don't know why in the World Cup, where the level is higher, he decided or thought that all of a sudden Canada could attack everyone. And Croatia punished the living crap out of Canada for that. When you guys got that early goal against Croatia, you all should have just sat back, hit them in transition, and try to go that way. But all of a sudden, he changed that and didn't work. So Canada, to me, clear underachievement, just like Mexico. Probably the biggest underachievement, actually.
Yeah.
Probably the biggest, because we talk about how Mexico is goal differential. Costa Rica, we actually expected them to get 0 points. So
yeah.
Canada, 0 points, like to a bare, I'll say the bare minimum. If Canada finished with 1 point, I would be disappointed, but it would have been like a bare minimum. All right, pulled the draw, but I was expecting 2 to 3 points, like maybe a win or get like a draw against Belgium and Morocco and 2 points, and that would have been a decent campaign. Going through the group stage would have been an overachievement.
Yep. No, and Tack, you're right, and there's no if, ands, or buts about it. I agree with you. If Canada would have got even a draw, it would have changed the complexion even of that Morocco match, because a win could have even got them through. That they were playing for nothing at the time. They were so good, and it was such a positive. And I remember a lot of U.S. accounts were tweeting me like, "Look at John Herman taking this Canada team and going at Belgium, and we're very unlucky." But you can't not take those opportunities on the biggest level. And when you do, despite the Belgium game, in my eyes, being a success by the performance, it was a poor result because we didn't win. Everything was wrong about the Croatian match, just everything start to finish. Never should have gone with the two-man midfield or having Atiba in for that long. And then the Morocco one was just weird because it didn't matter, and we had a great second half to end off the World Cup and a terrible first half. So someone who got so much right for so long, John Herdman, as you know, seeing what Herdman was able to do against Mexico and the U.S., he has done a lot right, and he tactically has done a lot right. And it's just wild to see him not be able to do that on the biggest stage, and he just unfortunately fell short. So I would agree. I don't expect Canada to go to the group, but I expected them, the performance to be better throughout all three, and I expected them to get something. So the fact that we could have seen them finish third, like maybe in third, I would say they underachieved, because that's just the way it is. So, Tack, we have basically a split. We have right at expectation US, right at expectation Costa Rica, and then 2 underachievers in Mexico and Canada. So basically, to end off the video, it's the big final question, because we're kind of split here. Did CONCACAF underachieve? And actually, before I do that, we do have some just stats just to help balance it. So there's 32 teams in this World Cup. 1 out of 4 CONCACAF nations made it to the round of 16. 3 out of 6 Asian countries made it to the round of 16. I say they overachieved there. 2 out of 5 African teams made it to the round of 16. 2 out of 4 South American, I'd say they underachieved. And then 8 out of 13 European nations made it to the round of 16. So on percentage, the worst performing one was CONCACAF, but there's always context. So Tact, to end off the video, it's the final question. Did CONCACAF underachieve or fail at the 2022 World Cup?
Of course they failed. Right, Costa Rica had the worst loss in the World Cup. Right, that has to be said. That was the worst one, 7-0. The United States, which has a promising generation, just did the bare minimum. Mexico, one of the top CONCACAF nations the top of all time, right? The biggest achievements come from Mexico, couldn't get out of their group. Canada, the most maybe exciting, or with the US, exciting team in CONCACAF that had the best player in CONCACAF with Alphonso Davies, couldn't get a point. To me, it's a massive failure, right? And remember, we talked about Costa Rica achieving expectations. That because the expectations for them were achieving nothing. Yeah. And they achieved nothing.
Yeah.
So that's why they hit their expectation. And the United States also, if they were placed in a tougher group, maybe they wouldn't have gone through. Arguably the second weakest group in the World Cup, only behind Group A. So they absolutely failed. They were the worst performing confederation in the World Cup. Africa, the African Federation had a national team overachieve, like Morocco. We're recording this before the quarterfinals. Even if they get knocked down in the quarterfinals, they overachieved. It doesn't matter. Senegal went there, lost to England. That's fine. Asia, Japan got out of a very tough group. Could be considered a regular achievement, or I wouldn't say it's the bare minimum for Japan to get out of their group. It was an overachievement. South Korea got out of their group, right? So Australia, and they went toe-to-toe with Argentina. Well, Argentina was far better, but it was 2-1. Argentina had to actually fight for that result. But Lautaro was like pretending to be Higuain from 2014. But yeah, CONCACAF absolutely failed, which sucks because we have a World Cup in CONCACAF in 2026, and hopefully we can bounce back the next 4 years. But totally, we failed. Yes.
And that's what we're looking forward to. The 2026 World Cup will be hosted in CONCACAF, three countries, Canada, US, Mexico. We have a lot of exciting things to look forward to just in terms of obviously CONCACAF competitions like the Nations League, Gold Cup, the Copa America, which again, at time of recording, we don't know exactly what it'll look like, but there should be a much better opportunity for the CONCACAF nations to hopefully prep for a World Cup on home soil. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I really appreciate Tax once again. I mean, I kept him hostage, but he came back on the channel and I appreciate it. Check out his channel down below. Link will be in there as well. And guys, I hope you did enjoy this. And if you did, as always, be sure to drop a like, drop a sub. We'll see you soon. Cheers, friends.